So, yeah, welcome, please, Ryan, Tom, to alumni who, how many years ago was it?
About 3
years ago, took this course. And here to talk about your experiences since. Cool, and perhaps a bit about the course. Alright? Alright, cheers.
Thanks. So yeah, as Bill said, my name is Ryan, and I am a UXer / researcher / visual designer, or what's better known throughout the industry as a unicorn, a real life breathing unicorn. You'll hear that phrase a lot as you start to get more into UX. But yeah, so as Bill said, like I did the course about 3 years ago. I think we was UXDI 10 back then, and it was yeah, it wasn't as lush a nicer office as this. It was all like in a tiny little kitchen, and it was kind of had that family feel, you know, just 2 classes in Croydon. Yeah, obviously GA's come a long way since then. And so yeah, today I'm going to be talking to you about kind of my career over the last 10 years in tech, which hopefully will prompt some questions for you guys, you know, and hopefully you can take some you know, mistakes that I've made and kind of, you know, take some lessons away hopefully at the end. That will prompt some questions as well. So to start then, I thought I'd kind of go over in semi-detail of the most recent, like kind of 3 most recent roles following General Assembly, and what I learned. So to start off then, like Find My Past it's kind of like a family history company, and it's kind of, if you guys have heard of Ancestry.com, it's kind of like that focus, that's kind of like the US market. This is more like British. And yeah, it's a web-based app, and I learned a lot there about kind of you know, how UX fits into software teams. It was kind of a very, very engineering kind of cultured web app, you know. And yeah, we had lots of like independent autonomous teams, and it's kind of how do they have their way of working, native agile, and how do you fit that in UX, team dynamics, things like that. That's what I predominantly learned there. Sorry, also like OKRs as well, which is, if you guys have heard of, it stands for Objective Key Results, which is what Google kind of made famous. They obviously have their own version. So yeah, I learned how that works or didn't work in certain ways. And then following that, I got a job at Scope. So Scope is a disability charity, one of the leaders actually in just really, their mission is to kind of bring equality to disabled people within the UK. At this point, it's worth noting as well, by the way, at this point I kind of, Find My Past was a permanent job, and I was a product designer, which basically just means, you know, traditionally product designer means like, you know, I don't design spoons or physical chairs or whatever. What it actually means is just digital product design. I'm sure you guys are learning there's so many different terminologies, there's so many different names, and all means different things to different people. So my title was product designer, which essentially just means I kind of did a little bit of everything, all the way from conception to user research onto, you know, information architecture, and then obviously, you know, making it nice at the end, visual design. So going back to Scope then, that's kind of where I had my first purely UX role, where I worked with another visual designer. So that was kind of agency side. Now I've worked in agency before, but from a visual design hat perspective. So this was new to me as far as the guy I was working with. It was great, by the way. He was like the visual designer. I worked closely in tandem with him, where I was leading on the research and UX, more of a kind of consultancy role. So that was new for me and interesting. And then that kind of brings me up to what I'm doing now. So this is also kind of new to me as well, from a UX standpoint. I'm doing a lot of remote work for a US agency based out in LA. And one of the clients is 3M, and they kind of obviously made famous by these post-its, right? They got all over the walls. But it turns out, you know, I thought that's what they did, right? And it turns out they're a Fortune 500 company, they do tons of different things. And they go much deeper than just making post-its. So yeah, learning what I learned there. I think since it's obviously a US agency, it's how do you make UX work? Because obviously UX is a very collaborative kind of thing, right? And you know, being in person is usually crucial to making it work. And so, or being in office. So it's kind of like, how do you make that work, you know, across the Atlantic and different time zones, different meetings and things like that. In addition to that as well is, you know, part of your role as UX will be to almost be like salesmanship, right? You need to be able to pitch the idea of UX because it's still kind of a niche market and a development market. You know, part of that is to educate people on what UX means, and so that's part of the challenge what I'm facing right now. And obviously, you know, being remote is even more difficult because, you know, over the phone is different than in person, right? So that's kind of what I've been up to recently. So I'll quickly take you back to the beginning. After that, I'd like to show you a quick video that hopefully is mildly entertaining. Just a word of warning, by the way, this is extremely realistic graphics. So if anyone's squeamish or doesn't like blood, I'll probably turn away now about video. Okay. Okay, you get the point. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is my absolutely horrible animation skills when I was about 13, 14 years of age. That was kind of back in 2003, 2004-ish, where that was kind of made in Flash. Back then it was owned by a company called Macromedia. I don't know if you guys remember this, Windows XP, the dream software. Now, suffice to say, obviously my animation career didn't pan out exactly the way I wanted to, making stick animations. But what it did do is kind of allow me to discover different software. That was kind of my first software that I got into, understanding software, how to use it, usability, and I used to think of that stuff that way from kind of early beginnings. So Dreamweaver is a software where you can code basically, try to make coding easier. There's lots of other better softwares out there now. But yeah, so I started getting to code, learning how to code websites and things like that and develop. That was like the pre-HTML5 days. Yeah. And then there was a guy called Adobe, Mr. Adobe, who's not very well liked in the community, as you'll probably hear many times. But yeah, he had a Macromedia sandwich, and Adobe basically bought Macromedia at this point, and this is kind of allowed me to discover by association. So it allowed me to discover, you know, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign. So I started to kind of play with those in my kind of late teens, and develop skills in those areas. Now, it's probably worth noting as well, like I did actually go to college for a year. I dropped out, wasn't for me. And then opted out of going to university as well, just because I kind of felt like at that point I was learning more just by reading books, doing tutorials and things like that, right? And so I opted out of going to university and actually ended up landing my first job as a web developer, kind of just either doing work really cheaply or just for free, just for fun, like going around town and just say, hey, you know, I make websites, do you want one? And then that way you get a portfolio. So anyone says you need a degree to get into the field, they're lying, so you don't necessarily need it. Sure, it helps, but you know, you put the work in and it always, you know, ends up coming back to you sooner or later. So yeah, following then, kind of, you know, 2015 was where I discovered General Assembly, and then obviously roles that I've had here. This was predominantly a web dev role, but the roles following that, I kind of moved away from that and went into more visual design. So like, you know, branding, motion, user interface design, like, you know, advertisements on the underground, things like that. So anything visual, kind of just experimenting with those things. And then obviously the final few that I spoke about in more detail that's more relevant to you guys is what I've been up to following General Assembly. So obviously, like, you can see there's a lot of variety there, which is why I kind of, you know, people call me a unicorn, or just for good or for bad, or whatever, however you want to judge that. But it kind of leads me to this point. My first point is kind of, you should try things, and you don't really know what you like until you try it. So you don't necessarily have to specialize in something straight away, right? You can. Now, I'm not saying go ahead, go do visual design, go do web dev. It's not, it's not always necessary for everyone. But at least in the, the case for UX is such a broad kind of field, and so many areas you can specialize in. You don't really know until you've at least got to below the surface level of what each of those mean. Another thing as well, you learn a lot of methods here in UX and just UX in general that kind of translate into a lot of other roles. So like product management, service design, CX. A lot of those things, if you look at a Venn diagram, a lot of those skills lend over to those kind of professions as well. I'll give you an example. There was an old classmate of mine, and on our client project, she immediately went into a product management position, and she's still there now. She still loves it. And she says a lot of the UX skills she taught gives her that kind of empathy and mindset to be a good product manager. So, number two. I'm not gonna kind of sugarcoat it and pretend that I got a job immediately out of GA and instantly. I was rejected a ton, but ultimately, it kind of served me well not to have things given to me on a double platter, because it may well happen for you guys, but I'll probably err on the side that it's not going to happen, and so you plan for that, expect it. But ultimately, I think failure is, on the surface it seems like a bad thing, but actually failure is just another stepping stone towards success. By its definition, it's kind of like it's a necessary part of getting to where you want to be, right? And so some people get demotivated. There are people that did give up, very few, but the ones that didn't got a job eventually, So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is stick at it. It will happen eventually. I think there's that famous saying, isn't there? I think J.K. Rowling got rejected by 12 publishers before she finally got published. So. Number three, trust in the process. So this one kind of goes back to when I was at General Assembly. I think this is a problem for myself and others as well, is that everyone was kind of so focused. When you're in this environment, everything seems so real and so which is good. It keeps the pressure up, it keeps you working hard. But sometimes you get so caught up in getting it right the first time, and you learn all these methods. You get. Sometimes you get skeptical as well. You get skeptical on, so much information in a short amount of time. And being a UXer a certain amount of skepticism is healthy, right? But just know that the methods you're being taught will make sense. If they don't make sense now, they'll make sense in time. There's so just trust in the methods. These methods have been tried and tested, so that's the reason we're being taught. But it may not make sense right this second. Analysis by paralysis. So this one is more focused on spending too much time on the starting line and getting everything kind of perfect. So I'll give you an example. I remember I think I was learning how to do task flows, page flows, user flows, and task analysis and all those kind of things. And it was all just, it was confusing how a lot of us. I don't know how it was the way it was talked about or explained, or whether we were just retards. I don't know what it was, right? But I couldn't work it out. But the problem with me was that I spent so much time just trying to get it right that that time spent at the starting line, I could have tried and failed 3 or 4 times, gone back to the drawing board and tried again. So you gotta look at it that way, and that goes for anything, right? Just do it. Again, failure is part of the process. Failure is a good thing in the long run. Number 5, record your presentations, which I see Bill's already started doing right now. But I think I remember General Assembly for me. When I was first doing my presenting, I just used to get really, really, really nervous. And I think when you're kind of after it, looking back, did I do good, did I do bad? You can't really pinpoint exactly, because when your body's in such a high state of adrenaline, your mind plays tricks on you, your memories get formed differently. So when you try to analyze it back, you're not judging from an accurate memory, if it were, as it were. So now I understand obviously you get feedback from your instructors, which is great, but if you film it, you get an exact relay of what happened. You can analyze it, you can identify your weak areas, your strong areas, go again, try again, keep going. So it's that pattern that's like all the same. You take anything, that kind of UX thinking of try and error. And then finally, CX vs UX. So who here knows what CX stands for? Yeah?
Customer experience.
Okay. So in conventional terms, that would be right. But what I mean for the, and that could be a talk in itself, right? But I think for this talk, what I actually mean as kind of a term that I've coined is colleague experience vs user experience. So what do I mean by that? So I think as a UXer, it's kind of like, it's largely a soft skill kind of role, right? You're going to be mixing with lots of different people, with lots of different roles, with different personality types, with different age groups, with all ways of working, kind of the team and the company, and there's so many variables. It's very difficult to pinpoint an exact route to go down per project, per team, per budget. Like so many, it goes, above your head a lot of the time. And some of those people, some of those teams may not necessarily be as open-minded as others may be. At GA you taught, which is right, and just UX in general, user, right? It's all about the user. But I think, there's the other side of it, which is CX, the colleague experience. How do you, so ultimately, an example would be, so I remember working closely with a few engineers or developers, and I was so passionate about the user. I wanted to get everything right for the user. Right? I have this, I've done research, I've done all this thing. I'm like, this is the way it should be, And ultimately, what happened was because I was so, forthcoming with kind of, I wanted it done a certain way. That kind of caused friction between me and that developer. And so ultimately, over the long run, it kind of, the user suffered because that came out in the wash in the product itself. So, even though with best intentions, kind of, I thought I was doing right by the user, over the long term, your colleague or peer relationships are, on par or at least, or even above, the UX, because it's all in tandem, it's all kind of linked. And finally, just to finish on that point actually, is one thing that I had to do now to kind of help guide you is ask the question, kind of weigh up, how much value is this bringing to you? This thing, whatever it may be, it could even happen in your group projects right now, right? And as I say, a good level of healthy debate is good, but how much value is this bringing to the user? And then weigh that up with, how much energy is this going to take me to implement, right? Like, who do I have to speak to? Why do I have to, how long is it going to take me? What's the complexity of this thing? And the answers to those questions should be relative to how much effort you should spend on the pushing that thing, wherever it may be, forward. But sometimes when you get caught up in the user, thinking about the user all the time, you're like, you just get lost in kind of really trying to, you always have the best intentions, but sometimes they don't turn out the way you want them to be. So just be mindful of that. Okay, so to recap then, so try lots of things. It's the only way you'll find out what you love, what you like. And then perseverance and persistence. So rejection is part of the process. So you just deal with it, dust yourself off, and move on. Trust in the process. So that's not to say don't try things, right? I'm reading from notes here and it's going on. Yeah. So try new things. Sorry, that's not to say don't try new things, but each method being taught can be extremely useful. Analysis by paralysis, don't overthink things, and record yourself. So analyze your weak spots and your strong spots, address them and move on. And then CX versus UX, obviously colleague relationships, and the team dynamics are just as important as UX as well. Thanks. Any questions? Yeah.
What kind of challenges did you face in your first job that you didn't really anticipate or prepare for?
I mean, the number one was the one I just went through, right? But you can't really prepare for that. So, I mean, I'd say what's kind of been a challenge for me is onboarding. So, like, not onboarding to the product, just onboarding to the company, and kind of knowing when to, take things into your own hands and when not to. Just because, I've had experiences where, they've been good companies. They have, once you're actually integrated to the team and you know the product, that takes time, right? And so a lot of them don't have systems, going back to service design, don't have systems to get to that point, so you just have to do things yourself. And so I would say, go out and if you're not being, fed the way you'd expect, just go and take things into your own hands and do what you need to do.
You have really many skills that people might kind of expect a UX designer to have, like all this kind of development and stuff and visual design and then the UX. So have you found it easy to kind of get to focus on what you actually want to focus on? And do you have any tips on that, on like how to avoid getting, thrown into things that you're not that into anymore?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I do. I mean, I don't really do much dev nowadays, but mentioning the other skills, I don't think as a pure UXer you necessarily expected to have those skills. Some people do, some people don't, right? But in terms of doing what you want to do, what you like to do, well, first of all, you're trying things to understand what you like, right? So it's kind of like I would probably advise just go out and do a little bit of everything, and then you'll have a better idea of which one you want to specialize in. But just to clarify, you're talking about projects, projects or specific skills?
Finding roles that kind of satisfy what you want to be doing right now, instead of kind of being offered, you can be this UX UI designer, you can just do these screens first. Like just because I've heard from people who kind of know how to code and know how to do visuals, that they maybe kind of tend to end up in places where they don't get to focus on the UX, for example.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, I think there's not many UX roles out there that are expected to code, right? That would be like a level above the unicorn, where you have to code, like super unicorn, whatever, coding, visual. But I would say I'm thinking two ways in this way. At first, sometimes you just got to take what you can get sometimes, and then kind of develop a portfolio, and then it just gets easy. After your first job, it's so much easier, right? Because you have real world experience. But essentially, it's about being not selfish, but what would be the right word? Kind of just forthright in what you want to do. If you want to do something, don't accept. So, for instance, if I go for 10 interviews, and I get rejected by 9, I'm like, I'm just going to take 10 because I've been rejected so many times, right? I don't know on the 15th I'd have a much better job, right? So maybe I would have been like, oh yeah, maybe I'll like this 10th job, or maybe I won't, or this 10th interview. But on the 5th, because I've succumbed to just getting a job and getting the bills in, I could have found a better one at 15. So I guess it really depends on, what your options are at that point. Like if you're determined to do it, then just deny the job and then go for the next one until you're satisfied.
Hey, thanks for coming in. It's really interesting seeing what you've been up to since the course and stuff. You've worked at loads of different places. Mm-hmm. We've been doing some design studios today, some popular ideas, and I just wondered sort of how a significant element that's been in the workplaces you've been in, like people literally just sitting around with a pencil and paper coming up with pure ideas and problem solving in that way. If that's a big part of the job, or if there's people who specialise in that, how that plays into it.
Okay, so I missed the what method did you say?
It's design studio.
Design studio, right? Okay.
Yeah, so sort of talking about 5 minutes, 10 minutes coming up with ideas, talking about that,
Right.
moving those ideas on to the next level. And
Right. Yeah. So actually, design studios. Not many people do them, but all the companies that I went to, they wasn't aware of what that was, or just those types of workshops in general. And so I went in and kind of actually helped them start to integrate that method into the practice. I've actually written a case study on it if you want to check it out. But yeah, it's kind of like, at least in my experience, I can obviously only speak from my perspective, they didn't do it, but as long as the company is open and open-minded enough to try new things, and I usually aim for those type of companies, right, otherwise it's not. So yeah, I would say aim for a company that's open, and then whatever method that you think is good, you can prove that it's good, maybe you do a demo of it, I'm sure you can implement that, and if it's not already implemented. Yeah. Yep.
Say, when you're a UX designer, when you come in and you have a solution, how important it is, like, on the creative side and the practical side, how you track that balance?
Right. So, what do you mean by bringing a solution?
Like, so, for example, you're given a task to solve something, like, sort of like particular problems that the company have dealt with, website or app. I don't know if that consistent with your life scenario. But if I agree this to case study, because my idea kind of spreads into like, okay, well, this by design is actually like that idea or something like that problem. So, but then I kind of spend a long time making this design fun, and then again, and I miss out that side of really, UX is solving problems, making it like easier for my client to tackle that. So I kind of got lost in that process. So like that experience.
Yeah. So just to clarify the question. So the question is, how do you weigh up creativity and practicality?
Yeah.
Would that be? And how? Okay. And what do you mean by practicality? Sorry. Just UX process, or what do you?
Yeah, like so it's like that creative design I was in my head. I was thinking that was part of the solution. But again, like I was kind of so focused on making it fun, and then I was kind of like, but I was losing the practicality of that. But again, it's like I'm lost on how to weigh out the two.
Right. Okay. I think I'm following you now. So you so you mean like creativity, so like mood boards and things like that you're talking about, and then like more practical meaning UX stuff, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think you can whatever works for you essentially. I mean, again, UX, these processes that are made for UX, there's no reason why you can't have your own process. Just make it your own process. If it gets the results, it's all about results, right? Like, you should be guided by what the user wants. And so, if you have an idea of where that comes from, you got, one of your classmates, could be from, someone from customer service can see it. It doesn't matter where the idea comes from, it's how you execute on that. How you test whether it's, you test whether it has any foundation, and then you build up the fidelity as you build more evidence. So you're kind of, and if you want to put creativity, meaning visual, if we're talking visual, meaning you're going to spend more time on it, that should be proportional to the amount of evidence that you have that it's a good one, right? So we start from the bottom where it's just like, I'm in the shower, and it's a good idea. And everyone loves their own ideas, right? So it's kind of how do you prove that, and then as you get further along, then I would probably say, go ahead and start doing making it fun as it were, above solving the problem. So,
yeah, it's a lot easier that sort of thing when you've got feedback from the people building stuff as well, like on how feasible things are. Like, you've got feedback from the users, is this thing a thing they want, does it make any sense to them, and you've probably got feedback from your product team as well, on like, is this thing actually realistic, can we do it, is there any incentive to do it in business, that kind of thing.
Right, and I think there's one more quick point that just comes to mind actually on that kind of subject is, sometimes ideas kind of, just in any kind of research or testing, sometimes people say what they want and what they actually mean is something else. And so that's what's great about UX, is the middle ground between science and art. There's no direct, you have to kind of use your intuition and data and all these different variables. There's no definitive, like 2 + 2 = 4 is a fact, right? It's not the case in UX. And so, sorry if that kind of isn't a direct answer to your question clearly, but yeah. Yeah.
Sort of, excuse me, what's the sort of length of the last couple of projects you did? You said you did some agency stuff for a while.
Right.
Like, what was the sort of I guess, the budget and scope and stuff? Just roughly like weeks, months?
Yeah. So the scope on was originally, my contract was for 3 months, but it turned out to be 6 months. But the entire project, it was kind of it was a large project. It was a small team, like we should have been a team of just me and visual designer and a bunch of developers and a project manager. But yeah, so it turned out to be 6 months. The project's still ongoing, it's still being built now. But I'm kind of out of the loop on that right now. Still giving contact and everything, but yeah, it was 6 months.
So that was the UX length?
That was just purely UX, yeah. So the research piece was 3 months, and then yeah, everything else was the other 3 months. And that was a condensed version of what we kind of suggested statement work-wise. Yep.
And you will find all kinds of lengths of projects out there. I mean, the one you'll see advertised a lot is 3 months.
Right, that's kind of
yeah, that's kind of about the minimum for a contract job. But then they will often go on 6 months or a year or whatever. Then if you're working in a product company, you might be working on one thing for years. If you're working in an agency, you might do lots of things that last a month or even less, depending on like the budget and scope and the client.
Yeah.
How did you find your first role, and then from then on, how did you find your following roles? Like, was it through recruitment or your connections?
I think, well, first of all, if anyone's not signed up on LinkedIn, you need to sign up on LinkedIn. That's kind of, I'm quite fortunate now where I don't really actively look for roles. I just kind of read your inbox, because I think the kind of I'm not saying that to boast. I'm just saying because I mean, like, the kind of the market is so huge right now, and it's in demand, and I feel like the supply isn't that, it's not matching it. Otherwise, I wouldn't get so many inboxes, right? So yeah, I kind of found it. I just kind of found it that way. But if I was looking for a role, I would just actively look on Indeed and LinkedIn. And I'd find them that way. I'd usually try to do something that I didn't do before that. So, for instance, like, you'll notice that my trend is like, I'll do a little bit of this. So maybe if I'm permanent, I'll go contract. From contract, I'll go UX. I'll go. So you kind of just developing yourself, and there's lots of intricacies, right? Whether that be doing client presentations, and so you got to ask yourself those questions. Well, your weak areas especially, try to tackle those. I know it's fearful, right? But that's how you grow. That's a great career. So. Yeah.
What were your weak areas, and what did you do about them?
Well, have you got well, I think I definitely a weak area for me was presenting. So I do try to present what I can. So weak areas as well would be, where I spoke about soft skills, right? Because I came from a very visual design background with a perfectionist mindset. So that doesn't work very well in UX when you're working in teams, as I've learned the hard way. So it's kind of, I've kind of had to adapt 2 hats now. I have my UI hat, and this pixel's not quite right, like moving this left. And then I have my UX hat where I'm kind of like, I ask that question, right? Like, okay, let's look at the big picture, the strategy. Let's not focus on, pushing pixels around. That's not going to have a big term effect. So yeah, that's been a challenge. I mean, it continues to be a challenge, and yeah, it's fun to develop it.
What advice would you have for this lot as they leave this glorious nest?
Yeah,
right
out into the wild.
Yes.
Advice would be, I think, just kind of the second point, just being rigorous in in whatever you want to do, like, and kind of embrace rejection and failure, because I don't know about you guys, but when I get rejected, it makes me hungrier, and so if I got accepted for everything, I probably get bored, and like, it's too easy, you know? So rejection and failure, let that, you can have two options, right? When it happens, you can go, oh, poor me, I'm a big deal, or this, and just lay down, roll over, and go, or you can get back up and say, listen, I'm gonna teach me a lesson. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? And come up with the strategy to fix that, and just take action. Just always take action. Back to the other point, you know, don't sit at the start of the line thinking about what you do. Just do it, fail and do it, and you'll do it again.
Also, any thoughts on portfolios?
Yeah, portfolios. So, in terms of like visual design or like UX or like.
Well, most of them are going to be working on UX portfolios.
Right.
So what do you look for in a UX portfolio? How do you think a UX portfolio is done right?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is, I mean, I suppose it would depend on the use case, right? Like who's going to be briefing it, who wants it. So I guess, assuming that I'm an employer, I'm a UX, I'm looking for employees, then I would predominantly, and purely UX, then I would predominantly I would focus on your content, right? Don't just the exact same process you guys are doing in your product, do the same with your case studies. Go on medium.com or go whatever. So take your mind out of what it's going to look like, you know, looking pretty, and just fish out how you're going to actually take the same approach as everything here with the content itself. So go out and test it, right? You know, go and have someone read it and go, is this too long, too short? And, you know, in an ideal world, you can even do that with real people that are going to be employing you, right? And get the feedback. Did you find this boring? How much time do you have to read this? And kind of target specifically towards that person. Then once you've done that, build up and then go and make it look, you know, cool and fun. And this is where, you know, creativity does help. Use on it right now. but yeah, creativity helps a lot of time because it gives you that kind of, you know, aha moment, you know. So.
Yeah, we're kind of time, aren't we? Close to a few minutes left. Any final questions?
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
If you work on a project where the solution is quite simple, not simple, but the solution is not exciting, but you solve the problem, how do you put that across in your portfolio and still impress future employers with that solution?
I think the thing is, they'll probably, the thing with UX, the beauty of UX is, it's not necessarily whether you failed or whether you achieved. Then if you show that you can follow a process and the way you think in a certain way, you're empathetic and you have those characteristics, that's what's going to get you the job, not whether you just want $1 million, yeah, it's great, you just got $1 million increase in revenue, whatever. But essentially, if you've got the right process, you're going to hit that goal anyway, or whatever that goal may be. So it's showing that you can communicate that as well. How do you communicate that?
So it doesn't necessarily matter what type of brief you've been given or how exciting it is, as long as you use the processes correctly all the time.
Well, I'm not going to say that if you have a case study at Spotify or a case study, at McDonald's, then there's going to be a difference, right? But it's still kind of, at least, it definitely, that's the predominant judging factor, I feel, is the process and how you communicate it. And then on top of that, if you've got results as well, then that helps. But it's not necessary, I think, to be able to get your first role results. Yeah.
Happy effort.
Have I?
Happy effort like you do, just like when I come up to you with the task, let me know. And then, or when we start, you do the research, you did all the testing, and you just realise, oh no, well, actually, this would solve what's your task was. And then you go back to the client and say, look, this is what I'm trying to do, and sure support everything. But your client's not happy enough because it's just not unicorn enough.
Oh right, okay, so you mean a client's not happy when I come up with a solution that I know works? Yeah? Was that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, definitely. There's always going to be clients. It depends on what clients you have, right? And that's why I always aim for clients that either understand UX in the process or understand empathy. I think that you don't need to understand UX, you just need to understand users and be open-minded. And so you can kind of, if you don't have that, it makes it much more difficult because you have those agencies who just like, oh, kind of, these are our requirements, this is how it is, set in stone, go do that. Yeah, you deliver, but that's the kind of argument between outcomes and outputs, right? And so I would aim for finding those. You do run into those, but if you can avoid them by looking for, you can just have a conversation with them and you'll get an idea straight away of how they kind of work and things like that. Cool.
Thanks so much, Ryan.